Rod Rosenstein's era at the Department of Justice has come to an end, or at least it will on May 11th. He, as of a few hours ago, submitted his letter of resignation saying he will no longer be Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America. We have not much so far on this. We do, of course, have the story of what unfolded over the last few years, less than 2 years, around that he has been the Deputy Attorney General. But we do have his letter of resignation. So I'm just gonna read from it, see what we think of it, how well it's crafted. In the first paragraph, he says, the Department of Justice made rapid progress in achieving the administration's law enforcement priorities.
Already funny.
We staffed the Department of Justice and the US Attorney's Office with skilled and principled leaders devoted to the values that make America great.
Okay, so this is gonna get to the very sad fate of Rod Rosenstein in a second. But I'd like to note for the record, as he's saying how great the Department of Justice is, Donald Trump just this weekend did a rally where he called the FBI and Department of Justice scum.
Right there, as he lists, I mean, this to me is how Rod Rosenstein stays around in the Department of Justice for so long. He knows
being a worm.
Just kind
A
of
spineless worm for the most part.
Yeah, because I mean, first paragraph, he's saying "Make America Great," and I feel like that really represents the way he has been throughout his tenure there. He's able to navigate through multiple administrations, but I mean, this guy, apparently he took the job just 2 weeks before Comey got fired. And then suddenly Jeff Sessions had to recuse himself and he found himself overseeing one of the most significant investigations in the history of the United States, really, or at least recent memory.
Yeah, he's a bit of a nervous Nelly, and so his course to the Trump administration is actually telling. So he comes in, they say, hey, write a memo explaining why James Comey, what he might have done wrong. So he looks around and he says, well, the one thing he did wrong was what he said about Hillary Clinton when they were choosing not to prosecute her. It was unprecedented for the head of the FBI, who is not a prosecutor, who investigates. The prosecutor makes the decisions. The Attorney General would make the decision on whether to prosecute or not. It was unprecedented for him to come out and say all those terrible things about Hillary Clinton while and concluding that they shouldn't prosecute. Both of those things were wrong. He didn't know that Trump was going to then take that and go, yeah, that's why I'm firing him. And so when he found that out, he was like, what? Wait, you didn't, nobody told me that. So then the second thing that happens with Rosenstein is he goes and starts talking to Trump now that he's there and he's the Deputy Attorney General. And he's like, oh my God, this guy's totally unstable. And he goes around and says, I'm thinking of wearing a wire. And this is an extraordinary story. Allegedly, right.
We don't know if he was actually invoking the 25th Amendment or not, or if it was just suspicion. It's something I believe that he has gone back and forth on.
Yeah, he has, but that's because he's a worm, as you said, and trying to figure out.
There's a word I want to use when I describe people like Rosenstein, but I don't know if I'm allowed to say it on TYT anymore. It starts with a C and ends with a K. Cuck.
I think the word I'm looking for
is
like,
Jesus, wait, what's
there's
the
a
word?
couple that
no, I mean the word I'm looking for is cuck. And the reason why I legitimately believe that a lot of people, and I hate to use like alt-right terminology for this, but Donald Trump is actually cucking a lot of people in both the Democratic establishment and also the Republican establishment. And even as you mentioned in the intelligence community, by constantly, very publicly criticizing them in really abhorrent ways. And then they have to turn around and be like, oh, but he's still great. I swear to God, he's still great. Like, such is the nature of a bootlicker who wants to probably have a decent career after he leaves the Department of Justice and work in the private sector.
Yeah, so, and I am gonna agree with Haas on at least the phrase bootlicker, because so the most consequential thing that Rosenstein does is he goes, all right, well, I mean, the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, recused himself from the Russia case, but this looks really, really bad, so I'm gonna put in a special counsel. And then Trump gets, and so he does that, and he thinks it's normal. Then Trump gets furious. And he spends the next couple of years like, oh, I'm so sorry. And Trump every once in a while will tweet like, I'm thinking of firing Rod Rosenstein. And Rod Rosenstein, like if you're a man of principle, you go, no, I put the guy in place because that's what my job is as Attorney General, not of Donald Trump, but of the United States of America. No, Rosenstein goes and goes, I'm sorry, I wasn't necessarily gonna wear a wire. And did we say 25th Amendment? You definitely consider the 25th Amendment. Other people have corroborated that now. But instead of standing up for himself, he constantly groveled and groveled and groveled. Why did they keep him around? because people were like, look, Mueller's about to come up with a report saying you obstructed justice. Firing the guy who hired Mueller would look like more obstruction of justice. So now the Mueller report's done and they're like, okay, Rod, you've been a good little boy, off you go.
Yeah, just to close out his resignation letter, he says, at the Department of Justice, we stand watch over what Attorney General Robert Jackson called the inner ramparts of society, the Constitution, its guarantees, our freedoms, and the supremacy of law. As a result, the department bears a special responsibility to avoid partisanship. Political considerations may influence policy choices, but neutral principles must drive decisions about individual cases. We enforce the law without fear of favor because credible evidence is not partisan and truth is not determined by opinion polls. We ignore fleeting distractions and focus our attention on the things that matter because a republic that endures is not governed by the news cycle.
Yeah, when things that matter, like the FBI trying to find mentally disabled or intellectually disabled Muslim children so they can go out and pin some terror crimes on them by trolling message boards. That's the kind of stuff that we want to do. Talking about prosecuting financial criminals, especially at the top level, no sir, no political motivation there, by the way, not at all. Totally impartial. All we care about is the law. As long as we can get quick slam dunks by locking up young children of color in those communities, or like I said, by making Muslim children look like they're terrorists on the internet.
Yeah, so last two things about this. So one is to the point that Haas made, and this is not specific to Trump. Whether it was Republican or Democratic administrations, the bankers are too big to jail. So without fear or favor, really? The bankers scare the living hell out of you. They give money to your bosses. They're the biggest donors there are. So no, there was enormous fear and enormous favor. Total lie. And under Trump, they shut down the part of the Department of Homeland Security that would have tracked domestic terrorists, the right-wing terrorists that have been doing all these shootings, one after another in synagogues and churches and in yoga places, everywhere, all these different right-wingers who did it. And Rod Rosenstein, what, did he stand up and go, no, this is outrageous, there's shootings happening all over the country. No, this Department of Justice is gonna track that. No, he's like, oh, yes, boss, of course, boss. We shut it down, boss. And so why did they, it looked like they were gonna fire Rosenstein right after we found out about wearing a wire and the 25th Amendment and all that stuff. So they kept him around because they didn't want to add to the obstruction charges, as I told you earlier. But there was a second reason. Because at the end, when the Mueller report comes out, William Barr, who's in the tank for Trump, and that's why he got the job to replace Sessions, goes over to Rod and goes, Rod, we're gonna need one more thing from you, okay? Yeah. We're gonna need you to sign on to my conclusion that there was no obstruction. But sir, it says in the report there was obstruction and that Congress should do something about it and that it's not our purview, so it's not the Department of Justice, it's Congress who should act. That's what it says in the report. Hey, Rod, do as you're told. Okay, yes, there's no obstruction, Oh, you did, idiot, you're fired. Thank you, we got all the use we need out of you. Now pack your goddamn bags. And then you write a letter at the end about, oh, I have no fear or favor. Your whole life is about fear and giving favor to the powerful. And that's what you'll be known as. The TYT Plus app is now available on iOS and Android. Download to get more TYT content at tyt.com/app.